Is Veve dead or dying? Some big names have been riding that train.
The problem is it's closed, so you can't move your NFTs off of Veve anymore. It's not set up great to be kind of just regular part of the NFT community.
Is this going to be like Veve, which is money comes on, but money can't come off? You can buy that Spider-Man thing and you could trade it for your little Veve coin, but then you can't trade your Veve coin back to dollars. Guess what though? They'll take your dollars.
And some even outright calling it
Veve dead. Veve, come on, man. All right, so Veve, yes, Veve is dead, I'm afraid to say.
In today's video, let's dig into the numbers to find out what's really going on. Is Veve dying or is it already dead? You know I love to quantify things. It's not Monday, but let's look at the data, Meta Monday style, to get us started in this investigation. Here we have the total transactions for the past 3 quarters. That's October 22 to present day. There is a general slow decline in overall transactions on both primary and secondary markets, with it peaking in October at around 384,000 transactions. And we should end the month at around 290,000 transactions. That's a 24% decline. And if I was a TA guy, I'd say something like, hey, look at those lower highs and lower lows. 24% is bad, but it's not catastrophic since the total, it's still kind of up there, which isn't too surprising since Veve continues to release products week to week, while sometimes adapting the releases with lower mints to account for the lower demand during this bear market. I also want to point out that these peaks here, I believe Ecomi has a long calendar of planned releases, which include periodically dropping grails or other items they know would have a higher demand. Now, I believe they space these out on purpose. With that said, just a word of caution, there's some misleading information out there pertaining to the days or the weeks or even the months with bigger grail type drops. Drop days have high activity. Weeks with 3 drops will obviously have more activity than weeks with only 1 or 2 drops. And months where there are grails released, as I showed earlier, they will have the most activity. The caution is when you see the perma bears showing the weekly decrease in activity comparing a 1-week drop versus a 3-week drop, for example. The daily ups and downs are even worse because the explanation is so obvious. You'll see a big increase on drop days and a big decrease on non-drop days. Both sides do this. The perma bulls will do the same, but only talk about the positive movements. So please have your critical thinking caps on because there's a lot of selection bias to fit whatever narrative they want. But back to the main topic here, these ups and downs don't change the fact that if we zoom out, it's an overall downtrend. When we look at the unique buyers, there's a much more definitive pattern that emerges. The market transactions had a 24% downtrend, but the people participating is falling at a concerning rate. I count active user as someone who actively participates in the market. Quarter over quarter, that's a 12% drop in Q1 23 and a 14% drop in Q2 23. From top to bottom in this range, so that's from October last year, we had just under 35,000 unique monthly users. In June, we're at 21,000. That's a 40% drop. That's pretty big in just 9 months. So let me take my own advice I gave you earlier and zoom out to find a few different perspectives and see if that story still makes sense. First up is the global NFT marketplace, and you'll see an interesting and familiar trend. Using the same date range as our Veve data earlier, you can see that total unique buyers quarter over quarter drops 19% in Q1 and 33% in Q2. There is a downtrend in NFT buyers, both globally and within Veve. Total transactions presents a different story. Q1 was up 43% and Q2 was up 9% quarter over quarter. As always, the devil's in the details. A massive driver to the rise in transactions on the global NFT markets can be attributed to number 1, February was inflated by the Blur token farming period or wash trading in the hopes of getting a bigger share of the Blur token airdrop. And number 2, Arbitrum's launch airdrop in March contributed to 2.7 million transactions daily. Now here's my interpretation of that data. Now Veve and the overall markets are suffering from a whole lot of churn. Users drop off month over month. That's not a good sign. Of that dwindling population, there are jumps in activity when there's some incentive for profit. Within Veve, that's when grails or items of perceived future value are dropped, or if you're incentivized to buy things that result in an exclusive item like an airdrop. That same thing happens outside of Veve. The upticks in activity are when the platforms offer a token or an NFT airdrop. But taking that out, it's the same downward trends. I even see some sales tactics to try to boost sales. A new thing from Palm is where you can access the drop only if you buy the previous comic drop. Now, I bought them just because they're $10, but deep down, I thoroughly dislike that tactic because it's like those sales promos that say, hey, you can get 50% off an item, but you got to buy 3 things first at the full price. Those business tactics, those practices are just trying to squeeze more out of each interaction with a customer. Those can only take you so far, especially when discretionary spending is way down, something I've been saying would happen for over a year now. Even with that said, we can put to rest the whole Veve is dead thing. 20,000 unique active wallets and 290,000 transactions in June is far from dead. Now, I want to be clear. Now, the people who I will clip into this intro, who talked negatively about this, I do respect them. A few of them. DZ is low-key one of the smarter people on that channel. If you listen to his words, he knows what he's talking about. And Paul Barron provides very good coverage on the overall crypto space. People who cover the news, guess what? Sometimes they have hot takes. It happens all the time, especially in sports.
Tom Brady's just about done. It could be his next game he plays, it could be a year from now, but he is going to fall off a cliff.
I also think this stems from the fact that they also sold their Ecomi or Veve collectibles. I mean, I do it all the time. When I bet on golf, if I choose a guy over another, I want the guy I didn't choose. I want him to do poorly just to justify my choice. When you sell something, you want it to go down to justify your choice for exiting your position. We see it all the time in our community. Everybody who apparently left but stays around just to be FUD faces. It's the same psychology just to justify their exit position. And yes, I just did say FUD faces. I'm going to start using that. So again, it's not dead, but users are definitely on the decline, and transactions are propped up by sales tactics and not innovation. If nothing changes, that is not sustainable. Airdrops and sales tactics are just temporary band-aids. Luckily, I believe there are some positive things within Veve that might do well for us, but more on that in part 3 of this video. In this next part, I want to explore what would it then take to kill Veve? What are the top going concern issues, at least in my mind? And the first thing is kind of connected to part 1, which is an extended bear market combined with a lack of innovation. Because as it is, the status quo is leading to a steady decline in users and activity. Now, one of the things that helps innovation is money. You need money to hire the people to create and develop your product and ideas. And if you watched my last video, and also agree with my thesis that we are entering a new era of investing, then you know that the free money, which small tech relies on heavily, they rely on it to build, that free money will no longer be available. That's a pretty big risk. Now, in regards to what else will kill the platform, the next thing we don't really know about, and we will never know about unless Ecomi goes public or bankrupt. Now, I'm talking about their real financial health. Some like to pull out their multiplication tables and boast about what top line revenue is like it's only a good thing. But that's on its own is very misleading. Now, I've talked about that too in past Meta Monday episodes, but I always make sure it was a comparative stat. As in, hey, they're in the top 3 in sales relative to other platforms, for example. Now, the reason I do that is I expect you to understand that if we're in the top 3, then we're better off than those, say, outside the top 10. Those projects outside the top 10, they should face difficulties first. They're our canaries in the coal mine. Without full financials or without even just that basic comparative analysis, gross revenue on its own and reported blindly as a positive thing, it's very misleading. A light bulb needs to go off in your head when a platform like Dapper's NFL All Day reportedly is being sued by the NFLPA for lack of revenue. When I look into this, some things seem kind of odd. NFL All Day's year-to-date 2023 sales is about $10 million. 2022, so last year, full year sales was 121 million. And life to date, they have 131 million in sales. How can a platform pulling in those numbers not have enough? Now, those are real numbers, but here are my thoughts, my interpretation of that. Now, 2021 was the birth of the NFT hype with nbatopshot. In February 21, they had 224 million in sales. In just the month of February. That is almost double what NFL All Day has pulled in their entire existence. Top Shot made that in a single month. For full year 21, they had a staggering 826 million in revenue. Now you combine that with everyone rushing to secure licensing agreements. Ecomi had Al Khan, and others, I believe they really had to pull out all the stops to make deals with other licensors. I'm sure people like Gary Vee did everything he could to secure the licenses he has during this whole frenzy. Now let's flip the tables and look at the licensor's perspective. To sell NFL gear, you need to secure a 100,000 minimum royalty guarantee and pay that annually to the NFL. However, if you're the NFL, you're also looking at that $826 million in revenue from NBA Top Shot. Combined with all those phone calls of everyone wanting a partnership with you, you know as a licensor, you're calling the shot. You're setting the price, and your price just got way, way more expensive. Those guarantees and royalties are now burning a hole in the licensee's financial statements, despite seemingly strong top-line numbers. Now, I mean, this happens all the time. Take a look at Toys R Us. They've had revenue in the tens of millions, but haven't had a positive net income since January 21. So again, reading one single line without context is wrong and frankly, very poor analysis. And that's just general income statement items. Looking at cash flows or the balance sheet, those are totally different and would provide a whole different kind of insight. The reality is, we don't know what Ecomi's financials look like. If you're a critical thinker, then there are red flags when the $121 million of revenue generated by Allday is still not enough. So when the conversation is about going concern issues with Veve, yes, there is the potential with this because the unknown of liabilities, commitments, or even overcommitments for the sake of securing licensing agreements. All these unknowns, in my opinion, are potential issues, especially in an economy with big names showing their flaws in their operations. The next going concern, in my opinion, here will be a quick one, and that's with the Ecomi token. No, the risk is not regulation. I believe US regulation with the SEC will severely hamper the growth of any crypto that they target. But since many cryptos are registered outside the US, they will continue to operate. But make no mistake, in order to truly thrive, we need the world's largest economy to participate. Now, I believe the death of the Ecomi token will be if the team in charge abandons the token. I don't believe the current team will do that, although the final tokenomics are still up in the air. What I'm referring to is if they're ever bought out, and if the buyers realize, hey, the app kind of doesn't need the Ecomi token to operate. I want to be very clear here. That's a lot of ifs stacked on each other, so very unlikely at this point. Plus, at present day, I do not believe the team is trying to sell the company. I have seen firsthand a few mergers and acquisitions. They are more frequent in smaller tech firms. So let me put it this way, I do not see the characteristics that I've seen in the past. I don't see that with Ecomi in terms of a potential a company trying to sell themselves. That doesn't mean somebody won't come in and try to buy them. That's just what my experience tells me about companies wanting to sell the company. Now let's talk about the good stuff preventing a Veve death before you all start calling me the FUD face. Firstly, it's the licenses. Easily, that's the number one strength. We have the best arsenal of licenses out there. Now, there are risks that the licensors could go to other platforms, like how we see Star Wars NFTs with Cryptoys. I do like Cryptoys. I did a max mint with a Star Wars drop, and this is probably an unpopular opinion, but I was drawn to Cryptoys because of He-Man. This is a little off topic, but back in the mid to late 80s, me and my dad would go to a local video store and rent out every week the local He-Man on Betamax tapes. Beta tapes. Those were before VHS, which was before DVDs and Laserdiscs. My point is, licenses, they are a strength now, but it's only a matter of time before we see other platforms with the same IP as Veve. Another strength is the active users. Yes, despite the downward trend in unique buyers, it's still close to the top relative to the rest of the NFT market. For June, Veve's 20,000 active users would rank number 4 behind dmarket, SoulRare, and Ordinals. The other projects lower in these charts are the canaries in the coal mine. The lower you go down the list, the more likely they are to fall. The risk to this is, and I hinted at this earlier, Ecomi needs to innovate and invigorate the NFT market. The status quo equals a declining user base. And the issue is innovation like Veveverse and gamification, those all take time and money. The good thing is I think Ecomi is buying itself that time with a strategy to reach out to international markets. Now, I don't see many other platforms doing that. So I'm hoping that slows down the churn and contributes to net income, as long as the partnership deals make sense. Now, I'll end with Veve's biggest strength, and that's you, the community. You guys are keeping Twitter Spaces alive, watching videos from myself and others from the community, and spending your hard-earned money on their products. The risk to that strength is, at times we become a fractured community. If someone has a hot take, we cultishly go after them. And there are mood swings between the Moon Boys and the FUD faces bickering at every opportunity. Veve is the premium digital collectible platform in the NFT space. We have premium products, but we also want a premium community. My challenge to you is, when there's an opinion that differs from yours and you want to attack or retaliate, just ask yourself, what part of premium are you? If others see this premium community, they'll be more incentivized to join and stay. This community, it's a strength that we can actually control and contribute to. Now, we need to do a better job of keeping it premium. Thanks for watching.